Greetings, everyone. I am glad to again engage you today. I do believe that you have been following us, and if not, please welcome today if it's your first time. So we want to just celebrate you who have been consistent in following this, and we believe that your life is indeed changing for the better. The beauty about Coaching for Impact is that we want to make it your program. We want you to speak to us, to be able to suggest topics that we can talk about or we can tackle together right here with my very able friend. And we also want to still highlight the fact that one of us has been off on some kind of leave, and she will be with us when time allows. That is Dr. Muthoni, and we celebrate her right at home when she's watching this. So thank you for your time. My name is Nadini Ochieng, and I'm glad to host you today in this particular topic that we are tackling today. Peer pressure.
Thank you so much, Dennis. My name is Newton Ciel, and I think, again, it's an honor to be here and really looking forward. Yes, that's an interesting topic, peer pressure. And, you know, we were just discussing before, when do you draw the line and say that this is now what I don't want, I need to unshackle myself? That's something that probably I'd like you to start with, because I think most people tend to hear, or we were brought up being told that asiyefunzwa na mamaye funzwa na ulimwengu.
Yes,
but what role does especially negative peer pressure have? And I know this cuts across, you know, the younger generation, even older people, you know, our age group do also get peer pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think is first understanding what peer pressure is, and that is influence that from the people of the same age group, basically, where they are influencing you. It can be for good, as we've said, but mostly it can sometimes tend to be very, very negative. One of the things I know about life is that you can't walk alone. Yeah, they normally say if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go farther, or you have to be in a group. And so it's inevitable that in life, once in a while, we need people around us who are cheering us or encouraging us to be able to take that step and also to be able to make wise decisions. So it's very important. But at times, it comes to a place where you must be clear how far is too far for me. And I think that is, as you have said, I tackle it. It's very important. For me, it is in that place where it reaches where you are going against your beliefs. Assuming you have good beliefs, that is.
Good point. Against your core values.
Yes. Yes. So that place where you feel, I'm getting uncomfortable about this. It's making me not feel good after what has happened. Because, you know, there are times you go home and you are so guilty that you feel like everyone knows what you've been doing. You are getting. So I think it comes to that place where someone must have belief that they believe in, the right values of life, if there be that this particular person, then these are guardrails for me. When I see something going beyond that, I can outrightly say, this is not me. And I think that's a place for, first of all, beginning to stop, knowing that this is not me. Yeah, so I think for me, I would answer it that way.
I like what you mentioned, which is guardrails. And I'm sure for most of our listeners, and especially also our viewers, you must be wondering, where did we come from, you know, with this topic? As we said, peer pressure has become something that has become probably bigger. We don't think about it in the context of even on social media platforms or technology platforms. So peer pressure, we used to know it as being that point where you have friends that influence you in a negative way. But what about people that you are within the same WhatsApp group, and the WhatsApp group itself becomes a peer pressure? So I really agree with you. We talk about guardrails, and I know in one of our episodes we've talked about putting a tripwire. When do you know that this friend or these friends of mine are now taking me in the wrong direction? And when do I pull back? Because sometimes, remember, you might not realize it, and before you know it, you're in too deep, as I said, and probably on the complete opposite side from where your, like you said, your principles, your core values, or your purpose actually starts in. So I totally agree with you. And I still want to emphasize that, you know, peer pressure doesn't just come in at the youthful age. Maybe it's bigger in terms of influence, but I think even for older people, they do also have, and maybe one thing I'd ask you, what should you have as a criteria in determining that this person is, you know, is going to have a positive impact or is having a positive impact in my life? So that in a way, I'm trying to remove the chaff, remove the people who I feel would have a negative impact in my life. What should I do?
I think for me, number one, as I said, the biggest challenge, especially the generation that is coming after us has, is I feel like their world is kind of like turned upside down. I actually feel like, you know, we grew up knowing that they were heroes. And you looked at those heroes and you said, hey, I'm going to aspire to be that hero. Nowadays, people are celebrating villains, as in the baddest guy. So you see someone say, that's a goat. That's a goat. I'm going to follow that person. So then it becomes so confusing when you find yourself in that particular spot where you need to make the right choice of who do I pick in my life. Now, the funny thing about it is this, that if you don't have a standard, everyone sets a standard for you. So the first place for me, I feel, I talked about guardrails, but let's say the standards. Okay, what standard am I looking for in my life? What have I put as a bar for me? Where am I aiming to be at in life? These are very critical questions that will enable me to know if either the person tagging along with me is actually going to help me be there or is going to pull me back from where I want to be. So if these things are not in place, the first thing I will tell the listener or the person who is watching us, look for a coach.
Good point, because I know that we'll actually be diving in some of our future episodes about the issue of coaching and mentorship. But I want to come back to what you've said about, as you said, you know, setting the bar, right? And I know for some of our listeners and our viewers, sometimes maybe you reflect back, because I also believe that should we be assessing our own friends? And I'm thinking of it, I mean, me and you are both parents, right? So we do have kids and they come home with their CBC forms and you'll see that in this one it meets expectations, does not meet expectations.
This one doesn't, for sure.
At what point do you say that, hey, wait a minute, I think I need to also reflect and assess my friends. Do they actually meet expectations in terms of what they are influencing me? Is it a positive influence? Or am I even stagnating? For that matter, sometimes it might not be that the person you are with is actually negatively impacting you, which is not good, but that they have absolutely, it's a neutral impact. Not positive, not negative. But when do you do this kind of a self-assessment? And, you know, what should you then take as a follow-up action?
I remember once my teenage daughter came home and asked me a question. And the question was, Dad, who is a boyfriend? So I got myself in that place where you need to explain who a boyfriend is. Then the discussion went further, but I realized this discussion, where it's going, it's basically this person is trying to ask me whether it's a good thing to have a boyfriend. So I went ahead and asked, is this what you're trying to ask? And I said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask. Then she asked me, why is it wrong? Now, it's almost similar actually to the same thing. And I remember as a parent, you are cracking your brain to quickly think, okay, how do I answer it? Because
and a safe answer for that matter.
A safe answer, because if I do it the wrong way, this one I'm lost. So I remember I told her, I think it goes back to why you need that particular kind of a friend. So that if I need a boyfriend, then the question should be, why does it have to be a boy and not a girl? So for me, answering that question will enable me in the first place to put a finger on my feelings, to know, is it the confusion in my body that is making me feel this way? Now I feel when it comes to, for like the peers around you, it's almost the same thing, because it's kind of like, why do you need friends in your life? Then it becomes very important to point you to what kind of friends you are looking for. Because the reality is there's availability of all manner of friends. All right? Now, all these friends out there, everyone affiliates to what they feel gives them maybe momentary happiness, or maybe makes them escape from the stress of life. All right? So if you are not so clear on the reason why you need friends in your life, you're going to miss it completely. Once I know why I need friends, if it's purely for me to develop myself, to empower myself, to gain in life, then I have to look for specific kind of friends. And these friends may not necessarily, probably the peers in the same age group, because that leaves a gap between 5 years, all right? But in that case, it also means that within the same group, there are people I look up to. So if I'm looking up to this person, is it because they are affecting me for good, or they are infecting me for bad?
No, that's a good point. And I guess for our listeners and our viewers, it starts by you asking yourself, what is the environment that I need to be in, and how does it align with what we said earlier in terms of my purpose, and which friends do I need? But I guess also it brings us back to this situation where you found yourself, you've done the assessment, you've done the reflection, and you realize that, wait a minute, for these last 2 years, I'm actually degrowing, not growing.
Very true.
And when I look, my friends, or the network of the friends, circle of friends that I have, are not actually impacting as much as I should. In this case, I'm assuming that if you want to fire your friends, that's what I want to use. If you want to fire your friends and then to recruit new friends, what do you need to do? What should you do to say, okay, wait a minute, I think I need to reset this button and really think, because time goes, and I know we've been discussing that with you, that time really moves in very fast. So if you realize at some point in time that actually the people that I am with are not helping me to achieve or to be the kind of person I want to be, I need to fire my friends. What should I do?
For me, first of all, I draw circles around my friends. So there's the inner circle, the outermost circle. So, and this actually, for me, it was not automatic. It's because I remember when I was a teenager, I found myself gravitating more towards negative friends. So I remember by then, let me tell you, there's once, I think I escaped, I would have been charged with robbery with violence because a friend of mine robbed someone. Now what saved me is I had traveled to Nairobi that particular day and came back the evening. So I was so tired. So I remember you didn't chat at all, guys, man, today I'm so tired, let me know. That saved me. The other guys, I remember, police came in the next day. Everyone is being taken, handcuffed. I'm thinking, what's going on? So I'm being marched along with them. But I think that was a sobering moment for me. And so it made me think quickly, how do I know what kind of friends to pick and which ones to avoid? And I remember I had a discussion with someone who actually borrowed this from that particular person, who told me he was a friend of mine. So you see, I had several friends, some who were good, but suddenly I ended up always in the bad group. So I decided to have circles around my friends. So there's an inner circle of friends. Now these are the guys who hold me accountable. These are the guys I call Newton up to today. Some are in the US, some are in Europe, but we still talk. We've kept touch. So they are always able to ask me tough questions. They ask me uncomfortable questions because that's what we don't like. If you don't have friends who ask you tough questions, who make you uncomfortable when you're not progressing, then actually you don't have friends. So I drew that circle there, and I look for specific people. This is where you go for headhunting, Newton. You pick the best, that these are the guys I'm looking up to. Even if I know their standard is a bit too high for me, I tell them, please, can I just be tagging along so that I'm getting to learn? So there's that circle. Then there's the outer circle. So this outer circle becomes a friends who I call once in a while, where we just chat and say, man, I've missed you. Where are you? What's going on in life? Oh, I've not seen you for a while. Can we do coffee? Or can we do lunch? Then after that, there's the outermost circle for me, which I treat them kind of almost like acquaintances, but the people I know. But I keep calling them once in a while just to check, man, how are you doing? How is your business doing? How is everything about life? So that, Newton, for me, I feel is a very basic good system for a teenager or for even a man who is old enough in their 50s, 60s, who are still gravitating towards the negative. And as we said, an idle mind, remember our first topic?
Yes.
Tends up always to go towards the negative.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Very true. And I think that's a very good point. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think I've realized that over our lifetime, we probably underestimate the value that the friends have.
Yes,
and
yes.
yes, I mean, our topic is on peer influence. And we've said peer influence can actually be positive.
Yes.
It can also be negative.
Yes.
And maybe even to your point about having your own friends getting arrested, sometimes you don't actually get the luxury of, or an opportunity to correct something.
That's
and before you realize it's too late. And
gone
now
too
that you mentioned, there's an article I think that has been in the news also of a gentleman who was jailed, and it said the only mistake he made was to be in the wrong car.
Yes.
At the right time. And so it can happen sometimes that your own friends can get you into paths
Very
that you
true.
cannot
Very
get out of. But I wanted us to come back, even as we wrap up for our listeners and our viewers, about these friends that we may not often be with them physically, but the hold they have on our lives through the platforms that we share, either on social media, on even gatherings that we tend to, is so huge,
Yes,
right? And
very
as I said, some of this, it's actually because we are bound in one group with them. You could be in the same chama, you could be in the same WhatsApp group, you could be in the same a circle of friends that contribute together, yet their influence might not be what you actually align with in terms of your principles. So what then do you do, especially in this age of technology?
I think for me it's discipline. I tend to think, when you, especially Newton, when you're talking about social media is an addiction just like any other addiction. And I think people treat it like soft addiction. It's not soft at all. Actually, it's completely you are addicted. And one of the things that for me make me feel like social media especially, because when you talk of teens, it's purely mainly because of that. It is because they have too much time on their hands. I always feel like if you're a person who doesn't like reading, people will tell you, I read my books, soft copies. But Newton, I've realized there's a disadvantage of reading soft copies and having a hard copy. Because I realize when I'm doing a hard copy, I actually can do like 3 hours, I've not touched the phone. But once I have the soft copy, there always seems to be a message that comes in that will make you scroll back and go to the other side.
And remember, the way they've been configured, we've been talking about this, there's a prompt, isn't it?
Yes.
And
So
that prompt now diverts you from what you're doing.
I tell you your attention.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what social media does. And I think people don't realize that. And I think once people realize that this is where I am, I tend to keep checking my phone every time. Now, because of this, I realize that now I have to buy expensive clothes when I don't have the money. All right, so I have to go for this. I don't have the money. I need to go. And you see how quickly people now get it even to worse. Because you are trying, you don't have money, you go into betting for the little money you have, because you're looking for the bigger chunk, so you can also dress well, so you can also take nice photos. And I think this thing for me, I feel, for the generation that is coming after us, or even our own generation, or those who've gone before us that are struggling in this space, I think for me, one of the things that one must do is for you to develop discipline. You must have daily routine that you do to move away from that which has captured your attention and is leading you towards. If you have that daily routine that you can do, the interruptions that interrupt your life, interrupt gets you caught up. For me, Newton, I feel that's the best way that you can start now working on a plan to get out of that.
Exactly. And I think that's a good point. Maybe even as we wrap up for both our listeners and our viewers, don't just look at the aspect of peer pressure from the physical nature of the friendships that you are, but also the impact of technology. And I think our take-home message to our listeners and our audience is that it's important to unshackle yourself. We like to remind you that time is very, very limited. And so if your friends have a hold on your life, not only do you lose the opportunity to be able to actually progress, but more importantly, to even achieve your own purpose and your focus and goals. Here at Coaching for Impact, that's what we intend to do, to be able to really push them to, light up these things, that we want you to remember that if you don't do something about it, there's a risk that you might really slip down a very slippery path.
Very true.
What would be your closing comments?
I think my closing remark is know yourself. Who are you? What do you stand for? If you actually don't know who you are and what you stand for, everything goes in life. If you live like today is the only day you have, I know that's what Scripture tells us to do, but it tells us to live that way wisely. But if you do it negatively, believe you me, my brother, my sister, tomorrow is coming. And you see the consequences necessarily don't answer to your actions. Remember the 7 habits?
Yes.
Consequences are as a result of you breaking the principle. All right, so that's for me my take out today, and I hope this podcast was a blessing to you. Please share it, share out, and get to listen, call in people, and participate. We love to have you. We value you. That's why we take this time just to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, and see you next time.
All right.